Imagine that you're on this coast. A storm is making its way inland, stirring the sea into a crashing foam, reaffirming that nature is very much in control here. The clouds hang dark and ominous above you, and you see thick pillars of rain falling in the distance. Then you notice something else, something on the shoreline. A black figure begins to rise from the sea, as if it is pulling itself out from the very storm that begins to rage even more around you. You watch, waiting for the illusion to break, waiting for the shape to reveal itself as some random piece of wood carried inland by the sea. But that doesn't happen. As the shape continues to drag itself out of the water, you realise that you're looking at something that shouldn't be there. This vision of a huge black dog now becomes undeniable, and you feel your heart palpitate as you realise that it's heading straight for you. Well, good morning everybody, and welcome. You join me on another supernatural soiree through the Yorkshire countryside. And today I'm in Brunswick Bay, and over there is Kettleness, which holds a quite fascinating story. It is a bitterly cold day down here on the coast. There is actually still bits of snow you can see here, but on the moors around us there's quite a lot of snow. But yes, the wind is blowing and it's bringing that wind chill, which I think makes it the perfect day to tell our stories. We've actually got 3 stories today, one main one and a couple of others that just go to fill out the general lore of the place. Right, let's get warm. So this beach is the setting for a true, well actually it's that beach up there, which we're going to walk across the cliff tops to, and it's another one of these stories that travels through time with us, and as it does it changes slightly, the meanings change, but there's a very contemporary and fascinating account. Whether it's believable or not, I'm going to leave that up to you. But it all starts with a sighting of, you've guessed it, a black dog. So this first sighting is the one that I outlined in the introduction, and it happened to a local schoolmaster who'd been out walking with his friends. This creature reportedly moved towards the group before disappearing into thin air, leaving the group with the undeniable feeling that they'd seen something evil. The schoolmaster described it as being so large that it could not be mortal, and was so affected by this encounter that he felt that the whole area needed to be exorcised. This adds to a strong, already existing belief in the area that spectral black hounds were very real entities, and had been for hundreds if not thousands of years, and reports along this coast go back as far. But this was not hundreds of years ago, this was in the 1950s. Now these sort of places hold on to magic, and a quick walk along the beach reminds us of this by bringing us to the hob holes in the cliffs at Brunswick. Local people ingrained in belief and superstition would bring their children here to cure whooping cough, and approach the caves saying, "Hob hole hob, my bairn's got kink cough, take toff," in my proper Yorkshire accent there. This was a practice that carried on for some time and certainly documented in the 1800s. It just shows how much importance and belief these people and communities put into what most people now believe to be imagined creatures of a forgotten past. Right, we're going to leave the beach for a little while now, and we are following this path here, which goes up beside the river, up onto the Cleveland Way, and then we're going to follow the cliff tops along over to Kettleness. So yes, the first part of our story is pretty interesting really, but this story just continues to gather momentum. The schoolmaster's experience with this black dog left him feeling like something needed to be done to cleanse the place. So, as anyone would, he searched out an exorcist who could come and perform the task he believed needed doing. That was one Reverend Dr Reverend Omand, who was a high-profile practitioner of exorcism. He sent his communication and awaited a response. Now this is a good little footpathlet. Takes me up, through the river and up the river.
So let's see if we can navigate this. Obviously we've had a lot of snow, a lot of rain, so it's quite in good spate, I'd say.
Kettleness used to be a much larger village than it is today. It was once a thriving place with alum and jet mines. But as with so many of these places, the mining took its toll on the land and community. The mining resulted in instability, and with the coast being notoriously prone to erosion and collapse, the inevitable happened. Most of the village slipped into the sea, leaving only a tiny portion of what had originally been there. Since then, it has gained a reputation in the fossil hunting community, producing some great finds due to the fact that it is relatively difficult to access. It feels as though Tolkien may have used this as an example in Lord of the Rings, with the dwarves mining too deep and exposing something dark and dangerous. Perhaps the same is true here, although this is no Balrog, but a Barghest instead.
So the river continues on, but we have a handy bridge to cross right here, where we continue our walk and we can continue on with our stories. Right, first of all, I'd like to apologise. I've slipped over twice and I didn't get either of them on camera, so you know that it's pretty muddy today, so hopefully I will get one on camera before too long. Now, a particular apology goes out to my friend Stephen for that, because he always likes to watch me falling over. And while we're on the subject of Stephen, I'd like to put you onto a podcast, which is the Keithley Poltergeist. And that is a poltergeist case that Stephen has been researching using historical records and all the proper means, and it's out on most popular podcast platforms, so well worth checking out. I'll put a link in the description below. I hope you can hear me here. It's quite windy, but it's usually pretty good in the wind. I find this case fascinating because we've spoken about black dog lore. We know how far it goes back. We looked at the Flixton werewolf, we've looked at the Troller's Gill Barghest. We've also got the Guy Trash, which you could argue, you know, it sort of straddles the line between dog and goat. But what fascinates me about this one is the updating of it to suit the times. So we're now in the 20th century, Christianity is established, and this is firmly seen as a hellhound. And it sort of turns into a bit of a biblical war. You know, you've got the good doctor and this evil hellhound, and I just find it interesting how these stories fit into whatever time they come into, and it leads me to believe that they've been here for so long that the reality of them is something completely different to what we think about them, and is actually we just bend them to our will as time goes on. Could be that they are made up stories, but the genesis could be something, or the genesis could be something far more concrete. But the imagery of this black dog coming out of the sea here, particularly on a day like today when it's grey, murky, and it is stormy days when this happens. Oh, little slip there. But you know, do we feel that that's this threat rising out of the sea? That kind of points towards the threat of invasion that has constantly plagued this island as well, whether that's from Vikings or, well, countless other nations that have tried to get in. You know, we are a country made up of invaders, really. So yeah, I just find it interesting, this updating to suit the time. But the story, it obviously continues, and it continues in a wild fashion.
Dr Omand's interest was certainly piqued when he received the correspondence from Yorkshire, and he was no stranger to Kettleness and its legends. When he was a young boy, he'd been on a trip to Kettleness, and then again when working as a reporter for the Northern Echo. When he visited as a child, he reportedly said that he'd felt an evil and sinister presence on the beach, as though the place was infested with demons. And later, as a journalist, he had interviewed a local fisherman who claimed to have seen a black dog appear and disappear there more than once. Dr. Omand had also read Stoker's Dracula and had been obsessed by it, and was not surprised to see Kettleness mentioned by Stoker more than 5 times. He believed that Stoker himself had seen this black hound and had used it in the novel for Dracula's transformation when he arrives at Whitby, which is only a few miles down the coast from Kettleness. Needless to say, Dr. Omand was keen and willing to investigate this area again, this time armed with his new powers granted to him by his religion and his role as exorcist.
This is a great spot, isn't it? I mean, a cliff-top pass, a secluded, dangerous beach that you can only get to when the tide is low and the conditions are right, and nothing beyond until you hit mainland Europe, or Scandinavia really. And you know, we've been back to this idea many times on this channel, that it's these locations, these ones that don't change quite the same as other places, that really hold on to their stories. And I mean, it's the same in cities. Often these strange tales will be attached to the oldest buildings or the oldest landmarks, and that's what keeps them alive. And I think that's it here, the unchanging nature of it, although not completely unchanging here, and I'll explain why in a minute. Yeah, the unchanging nature of it allows these stories to settle down, and I think this one is a really good case of that story having such a firm grip that it gets this sort of yank into the modern era. And yeah, that's really magical for me. I feel, well, we're going to discuss more about how this story pans out in a bit, but yeah, I love the whole setup of it. It sounds like a film, doesn't it? It sounds like a Hollywood movie, and I think that's what makes it so compelling really, is that we can really place this one in our time and in our minds. It's not, we don't have to stretch the imagination too far to be able to live it in our heads. So we have contact with Dr. Omand, and he goes to see the beast for this final showdown. And what happens next? Well, it's almost unbelievable. So we do have to be careful here. We have to pick the story apart, not just blindly follow, but I'm going to present it as my research has shown it to me, and you can see what you think.
Dr. Omand met the schoolmaster at Scarborough Station, and then they drove on to Kettleness. Night was just beginning to bruise the sky when they arrived, and the weather was gathering into a storm. Dr. Omand and the schoolmaster made their way onto the beach, and Dr. Omand made a remark along the lines of, "All we need now is for Dracula to come bounding ashore in the form of a great black dog." But no sooner had the words left his mouth, the vision of the dog appeared. Dr. Omand described it as a huge animal, bigger than any known member of the canine family, and this thing was heading straight towards them. The schoolmaster, gripped with fear, fled the scene, running back to his car for safety. But Dr. Omand stood his ground, reaching for his bottle of holy water. Uncorking it, he then bellowed, "Begone in the name of Lord Jesus Christ, begone to the place appointed for you." He splashed the holy water towards the oncoming animal, and the animal disappeared as quickly as it had materialized. He then proceeded to cleanse the beach using the holy water, and stated that a great heaviness had left the area.
So again, our walk has followed the Cleveland Way today, so you get an idea of the sort of scenery you'd expect on that, as well as the moors and other beautiful spots. But I'm coming to the end of my bit. I'm going to try and get down here if I can, just to have a look at the headland, because really our story takes place down there, not at the Brunswick Bay end, but but it can be a little bit inaccessible, so I'm just going to see what the conditions are like. But yes, and then we're going to pick up the railway track, the old railway track, and look at our next story.
A small path leads down from the hamlet of Kettleness towards the headland, but it is not one for the faint-hearted. It follows the cliff edge and navigates the tight terrain, giving some wonderful views of the sea and surrounding coastline. It's favoured by the brave, but the foolhardy will not be rewarded along here.
Oh, this is a windy and precarious little path. Not one to do with the children or Larry dogs. You're quite close to the cliff edge, and we've got to remember that this cliff is very friable and prone to collapse. So yeah, go steady. I'm not going to go right the way down, because the last bit you have to climb down with a rope, and I am on my own, so I don't fancy doing that. But I want to get down a little bit just so we can see the beach a bit better, see our environment, and an extra special little magical element that it has to offer. Obviously you can walk here from Brunswick Bay, but you need to check the tide times pretty well. Sorry, I'm just concentrating here because I am on an edge and it is quite muddy. Don't slip. Whew. We're nearly down onto a more steady bit, and then I'm going to have a bit of a sit down, a relax, and a taking in of the environment. The wind's died down here though, which is nice, and it is a very peaceful and beautiful spot. We've got the cliffs up here towering away behind us, North Sea out here, and this beautiful headland to walk across. Absolutely glorious. This is a very odd feeling place. So we're right down on the headland now, and I mean, people obviously come here, there's lots of little paths and stuff, but like I say, they're pretty precarious, but it feels so strange. It's very otherworldly, like a bit lunar, but like mixed with moorland as well. And I don't know, I just feel like some places, you know, they attract these stories because there's a magic in the land, and it's that magic really that sort of is the fuel for these stories. And so, you know, we have a few here. We're going to cover 3 today, and that just shows you that, you know, whatever you think, something has driven these stories to survive. And I personally think it's magic, whether that's real magic or just the magic of the beauty, who knows, and that's up to you to decide. But I know what I think about these places, and it resonates here. So we've got these brick structures behind me. You can see like the outline of houses, and I wonder if this is the part of Kettleness that made its way into the sea. I noticed a few of them on the way down actually, and thought they were something different, but that would make sense, wouldn't it? What a beautiful spot.
This headland is a really peaceful place to be, and that added bit of magic I promised you is brought to you by this waterfall that pours over the land and onto the beach below. It's the perfect place to spend a bit of time thinking about the story of the Reverend and the black dog. As I've said previously, it's not really the truth of a story that concerns me, but the story itself, and this one is a good one. However, its proximity to us and our time does put it under more scrutiny, and I find myself thinking that the real character here is still the black dog, this mystical beast that has inhabited these parts for centuries. And really it's this creature's story, and as time continues, perhaps Dr Omand's part in all of this will diminish and become just another account of a conflicting belief system coming into contact with something that has its roots set much further back in time, something much older and connected to the land. I also wonder whether he really did conquer this hound as he proclaimed, as really his interaction with this dog was the same as the original one. The beast, once seen, then just disappears from view, and his waving of the holy water may have just been coincidence. Either way, for me, this account really serves to bolster the presence of this beast, this hellhound, this barghest, in this area, and helps preserve its memory for future generations. There's just a couple of other bits of information that need to be shared here. The schoolmaster, who accompanied Dr. Omand, apparently had a serious breakdown and never recovered, and was admitted to hospital where he then died. Then, of course, there's the fact that during excavations in the early 20th century, a skeleton of a man was uncovered. And what should be at his throat? The skeleton of a large dog, of course.
Right, so we're back onto the path where I do not want to be having my slip. Thank you very much. So, yeah, what a remarkable place. I think I'll probably come back down here in the summer as well to really enjoy it, because it's bitterly cold today. It is freezing, and the old digits are not working as they should, even though I've got gloves on. But yeah, it'd be nice to come down here, sit, chill, perhaps even spend the night in a bivvy bag or whatever, and just watch the world go by and see if any of that magic still lingers in the land. So yes, it's just plans for the summer. But at the moment, it's just keep it in motion to keep warm. But yeah, I would not recommend this path for anyone but the capable and the wary, in fact, because the more wary you are, the better you're going to be at preserving yourself, I think. I mean, there are some proper drops off of here. Here we go. Interestingly, the only footprints on this path are my own and a dog's. A dog with no owner. Oh well, you know, we know what that means, don't we? But yeah, what a special place. You can imagine. You can see now the tide is coming in and cutting off this beach from the headland. So you wouldn't be able to get back to Brunswick Bay if you'd walked here, so you have to really be careful of the tide times. But yeah, as long as you're clued up and you know what you're doing, it'll all be good. That time in the video where I need to say a massive, monstrous thank you to all of you lot. Again, so many nice comments. I'm getting loads of views. It's just unbelievable for me, really. This weird little fascination of mine seems to have struck a chord with a lot of people as well, and I'm really glad that I can bring these stories to you and you're enjoying them. There's some people who are, you know, regular commenters. You know who you are. Appreciate you very much. Thank you. And yeah, just it's amazing, really. And just that's it. Thank you. I really mean it. And I'm just going to keep trying to bring you more and more. So, anyway, quite steep this hill. Let's get to our next spot. All right.
This is the old station at Kettleness, obviously no longer used as such, but still showing signs of its original usage. It's now a centre for scouts, and this next story is still spoken about here.
Yes, so this next story comes from the old railway station that was based in Kettleness. Now it's no longer used, it's an outdoor activity centre because it was part of Beeching's cuts, but you can still see that it's there, and it was a railway station. Now, a young lad worked there. He worked hard hours, long hours, and his boss was not the kindest of gentlemen. One day, this poor lad had a terrible accident. The glass sheet on the window came down as his hand was through there giving some change to someone, and it chopped off 2 of his fingers. Normally this sort of accident, although terrible, could be dealt with by going to hospital. However, his boss was so mean and miserly that he forced this poor young lad to continue working. The inevitable happened and gangrene set in. Still, this boss forced his young employee to work through it, and eventually the inevitable happened and this poor lad died of his infection, a slow, painful death. But that is not where the story ends.
It's said that this poor young lad who lost his life because of the cruel and callous actions of another could not find rest after he died, and that he still wanders the area looking for his lost fingers. Some say that if you are to come across him whilst you're alone, he may even try to take yours instead. I've looked for accounts of this ghostly apparition, but could not find many apart from the fact that it's still spoken about locally. There is, however, a photograph that turns up if you search for it online. But once again, I feel that this story serves as a reminder that life is precious and should not be sacrificed through cruel actions or for the want of others.
So, wildlife on this walk. We've got some lovely stuff going on. We've got that beautiful, sad call of the curlew. There's plenty of oyster catchers around. I've seen a couple of big birds of prey, buzzards mainly. And yeah, there's plenty around. So, as ever on the coast here, it is a magnificent coast. I think you'd probably get seals here, but I haven't seen any today. We're not too far from a couple of the big seal colonies. But yeah, certainly those who like to watch wildlife will find interest here. They all come up to feed on these fields here. You won't be able to see them here, but we've got curlew up there, oyster catchers over there, so on and so forth. So yes, it's a nice spot. Like most ghost stories, it's a pretty sad one really. You know, that poor young lad left to haunt the rail line forever in search of his missing fingers, taking his revenge on those who may walk that way on a dark evening. And like most of these ghost stories, it is, you know, terribly sad, but is it true? I can't find many accounts of it now, but is it just a way of preserving the memory of someone who probably had a tragic accident, may have died, and this story sprung up as a way to memorialise them? I don't know, but I have no doubt that this place has informed the beliefs and the stories that happen around here. But the believability of them, well, with Dr Omand, I have questions, because he's latching on to an existing story and using it for his own purpose. Now this man, he didn't just fade into obscurity, he ended up on the BBC and he went on to exorcise no less than Loch Ness and the Bermuda Triangle, which is, you know, that may change your view on this story. I don't know if it does with mine, but perhaps he got so carried away after defeating the black dog that he felt he could set his sights on bigger things. But yes, interesting stories nonetheless, and they still reaffirm some of these classic folklore tales that, there was me slip, exist today, which, and you know, particularly in Yorkshire, which is that of the black dog. It is ever present, and like I say, it's the fascinating part for me is the changing nature of the stories as we move through time. There's another one. Right, Oh God, it's slippery up here. Right, I'm wandering back down these steps again now and back to the car. So it's that time to just say to everyone, once again, thank you so much. I really mean it. It's wonderful, this, sharing all these stories, and like I say, it helps me. You know, I don't think of myself as a particular expert. I'm just an interested party and it gives me an excuse to really dive into it and do lots of research and pull together ideas. So yeah, it's good, and it's wonderful to have you all along for the ride with me. Yes, so thank you. So yes, I will leave you with stories of ghost children, black dogs, and I will see you on the next one, people. And remember, keep looking into the darkness, and above all else, let's keep it weird. See you later. Right, back into the river we go. I love this little path, it's great, look at it. Just right beside the river. And they've given you a nice handrail so we can grab on if we want to and walk quite confidently beside this flowing beck. Isn't that marvellous?